And women are made of courage. It's the stuff that courses through our veins, not just some of us. It's not a privilege of the seasoned ones or the weathered ones by time a bit of experience, let's say. And every single one of us, every one of you, in fact. And all you need to do to believe it is look into her eyes on the screen or into your mirror. But the world would have us believe that courageous women are in some way, let's say, superhuman. Just Google it. Courageous women are furnished with spears and Olympian-level strength, and they're jumping between mountains and walking through war with children in their arms. And this is how the world thinks of courageous women, the archetypes of us. And by that mission, well, we're few and far between, right? Courageous women are edge cases, anomalies, really. We tend also to ascribe courage to the superwomen, those who take a stand and fight for us all, those who advocate and champion for stuff like social change. And they indeed deserve our applause. They deserve our sisterhood. They deserve our thanks. And no question, it takes great courage to take that stand and advocate. But what if courage was in the words that were often unspoken? And what if it was so subtle that it hid in plain sight, squirreled away there on the sides of a boardroom table, attached to that shy hand that's raised in the meeting? And what if courage was held in the quietest voices of the room, not the loudest? And what if courage of women, on average, was so quiet and so unassuming? Because that was actually what was expected of us, from us. But what if, for so many of us, courage was quiet and started with a tiny spark? What if it came in like the wind and it burned like a forever flame? And what if you never ever knew it was there until you always knew it was there? And it was in the embers of her, of you, and of us. And what if she, we, me, were just simply waiting for that moment when our fire, the one inside of every one of us, could flame up and heat the whole damn earth? What if? Because life shrinks or expands in proportion to our own courage. Because courage is like this, what I'll say is like a coveted currency. And the caliber of our lives and what we can afford is paid for by the courage we invest day to day. Because life rewards the courageous. We make movies about them. We write books about them. We celebrate it. But courage is often on a different timeline than we're on. Or we believe it's for other women, but maybe not for us. Or we think to ourselves, I was courageous once, but then I lost it. Damn, that was a good time. But as women, our life has the potential to transform in proportion to the courage we invest in it, and specifically in ourselves. And when we do, when we are courageous, that once, that twice, that everyday event, courage burns in us like a persistent flame. Because courage is like a muscle. It's stretched and strengthened and emboldened by use. And not only does courage take strength, it builds strength. Every day, women demonstrate courage. Every day you wake up with a flame, that kind of flame in us that says, I feel like hell, but I'm going to do it anyway. The will that says I can't, but I will. The kind of courage that musters up a meal when you're exhausted and you don't even feel like eating. The courage to say, I've had enough, and no, not today. It's the kind of courage that says, excuse me, I was actually in line. And before you interject, I have something to say, or I need to finish. The courage to pump yourself up before that meeting with everything in you, which was me 2 hours ago. The courage that says, I'll volunteer and I'll take that project. Sure, I'll lead it. The courage to defend your child, your spouse, your friend, someone who can't defend themselves. Or the courage to stand up for and make space for another woman. Maybe even the courage to stand up for yourself and your own needs. Or the courage to leave a relationship that wasn't serving you and where you were not respected. I've been there. I've done that, and I left with half the t-shirt. The courage to leave a marriage or a country where you had no means of supporting yourself. As women, that kind of courage is everyday courage. On any given Monday, Sunday, Wednesday, you name the day, if you're looking for it, you will see it. It's on the screen today. Tell me, what's the most courageous act of everyday courage that you've taken? Please share it with us and put it in the chat thread of today's call so that we can bear witness to your greatness, and also so we can learn how to better recognize everyday courage in women. And here's the thing. When women display courage, that courage reverberates far broader than the fire that it creates in ourselves. It forges a neural pathway between our brain that is rewired and says, when I step up to the plate, I can hit it out of the park. I've done this. I feel this. It feels familiar and possible and right. And bigger than that, courage is contagious. It cascades like ripples in a pond from generation to generation, from mother to child, from sister to sister, from leader to employee, from woman to woman. Courage is contagious. That's the kind of pandemic we want. In this constant refrain of courage, we realize that we can, that I can, that she can, that we can. And perhaps I'll just say that we must. So what happens when courage meets conviction? Do you jump? And in jumping, do you find that the wind actually carries you a bit? That there's momentum and lightness in the air? That there's this sense like you're steering, but that the world is also helping? Jumping and being courageous, no question, comes with great fear, a form of anticipation almost to it, right? All the way through to the experience of it. But here's the thing, guys and gals. There's just no way around this, because if you want something you've never ever had, you got to do something you've never ever done. And to do that, to actually put courage into practice, you need three things. You need courage, you need conviction, and then you got to make a choice. Because what's really the alternative here? The absence of action leads to nothing. It's just an idea, even if it's a good one. Like having the cure to cancer with no inclination to get to those who are afflicted. The lack of knowledge, but great desire to act, well, that can be just reckless. And then not having any faith or conviction feels safe, but also a bit stagnant and stale. So close your eyes and think about a time you were courageous. Visualize it. I know you have a moment. And don't water it down. Don't prune and think, I got something. No, wait, actually, that wasn't as courageous as I think. Pick something in the last week alone where you demonstrated courage. Everyday courage. To yourself, to your family, to your coworker, to a cause, to another woman. And just visualize, what did that look like? Feel it. What was the last straw that finally pushed you to make that choice and take action? What took that conviction to courage to final choice for you to make that action? Now, at one point in my own life, I got a call to courage that brought me face to face with a choice of whether to be, I'll just say, courageous on behalf of myself or on behalf of another woman. And to be clear, this was no woman who needed protection from anything. She was formidable, is formidable, and is a shero in her own right. But nonetheless, like many of us, she found herself in a boardroom with bias. And that bias showed up as disrespect, as being downplayed and spoken over and disempowered and sidelined and held to a very different standard than others. And because of this, she understandably felt very alone, an island, very disconnected from the company and leadership around her. She found herself armoring up for battle every time she walked into a meeting. She found herself wondering, frankly, if she should leave. Wrong place. And while I wasn't always in the same room bearing witness to the same bias, she faced an experience that differed from my own on many levels, but honestly, it felt the same. It smelled the same. The echo of it was so familiar to me that it made me bristle, and it pissed me off. I faced a choice of whether to advocate for what I knew to be right, which in this case was equality between men and women, respect, and for bias and bullying to step outside of the boardroom and allow people to be at their best. And to me, this was worth fighting for. And so I did. I took action to make known what I thought needed to be changed. And that meant meetings with HR, my own leadership, which stressed me out because honestly, I feared that there would be some reprisal or it would reflect badly on me and have consequences. I feared I'd look like a whiner or that I couldn't take it. That it would get back to people, right? And I'd be sidelined. But I did it anyway because I couldn't live with the feeling that if I didn't, what would happen for other women around me and those who came after me. That and the whole thing just made me really mad. And in the process of being courageous, a few things happened. I learned that we were not alone in our struggle, that others who followed in our footsteps faced the same issues, that the two of us actually had way more in common than less in common and became allies and friends. I also learned that things get righted in ways that are often more quiet, intentional, but unassuming, and to trust in that. There wasn't going to be any public victory lap, and I learned to be okay with that. I learned that for me to feel like me, I needed to be connected to we. Now, often before we step up to the plate and do a courageous act, we feel it in our bones before our mind decides to do it. The ruminations and repeats are coursing through us. They're coursing through us, sometimes inching us towards action and other times taking us away from it and coaching us back into our comfort zones. When we approach a courageous choice, meaning we don't have courage of convictions, but we choose to exert our leadership to the world, there's a cadence to it. Let me illustrate through our 4 ElleExcel pillars. First, let's start with you, the me pillar. Everything starts with the me pillar. And ask yourself, like, is my desire to do this courageous act, where does it actually come from in me? How does it align with my values? And if I were to describe it to my best friend, my daughter, or my friend, how would that feel to me? Could I live with myself if I didn't take action? And then when you consider the community, the we pillar, often we go here first as women before even taking stocks of how it feels to ourselves. But the kinds of questions you ask yourself here are, who do I need, if anyone, actually, to be along the ride with me? And if I need others, what's my plan for this allyship? If I chose to do this, is it bringing me closer or further away from my chosen community, And if I take this stand, how will it help them? And what happens if I'm the only one? What happens if I'm the only one taking this stand? And then we give this a read, right? Like inside our bodies. We take a gauge of how this actually feels in our bodies, not after the fact, but as we step up to the plate. Because courage comes with this tax, right? It comes with a tax, an inner tax. And what tax is my body inheriting by not taking on this courageous moment? There's a question. And is my struggle with this issue keeping me awake? Is it hampering the quality of my sleep? Is my breath offering me any clues about the gravity of this choice to me and my need to do it? Or how does it feel in my body when I just envision taking a stand? How does that feel? Trepidatious, hopeful, worrisome? What is it? And if I didn't do it, or I didn't say it, how would that feel? And finally, when you act, when you actually lead, and I know you will, and you ask yourself, what actions am I aiming to take? What are the actual actions, my choices? And how will I know, right, when I've succeeded? And how do I actually define success around this piece of courage? And what does making that choice actually look like to me? What will I see? What will I feel? Or what does making that choice look like to the outer world, to the community that am I choosing? How will it be known, or how will it be seen and experienced? And how will I act And what will I do if my choices are simply rejected or discouraged or they're not believed in? What will I say or do when my choices result in the change I seek? That's the bright side of that movie. You'll undoubtedly find that the more courageous you are, your dreams will get bigger. And your courage will not only inspire you, but a generation of women who follow in your footsteps. And when you do that, it creates a movement. And so, speaking of movements, the word advocacy to me has movement to it.